Hey friend, in today's watercolor tutorial, I'm going to be teaching step by step how to paint this watercolor landscape of Thor's hammer and the three wise men in Bryce Canyon National Park in Utah. Without further ado, let's get painting. For today's tutorial, I'll be using orange, yellow ochre, Naples Yellow, burnt umber, VanDyke Brown, and Prussian Blue by Winsor Newton. And then the paper I've taped down here is a size 5 by 7 inches, and the brushes I'm using are size 2, size 6, and size 16 round Princeton brush. To get started, I want to lay out our composition by doing a little sketch. So I'm just going to take some yellow ochre with my size 2 brush just to start to sketch our silhouette. And to begin, I'm going to start with 3 rounded rainbow curves, just like so. These are the tops of, I believe they call them the three wise men hoodoos in Bryce Canyon. I'll double check on that. But I'm just doing 3 rounded rainbow curves to begin. Then from here, I'm gonna just make them each kind of a rounded oval shape, as you can see. And then there's a little bit of a gap, like so. And then from here, I'm just going to do a rounded curve on the left side and then a larger rounded curve on the right side and kind of tuck it inward. Then I'm going to have kind of a sloping curve here. It's got a little bit of a divot in the center, almost like a cartoon bird kind of shape. Then from here, I'm just going to do a rounded kind of square shape that has a couple little divots, as you can see, just like that. Then from here, I'm going to kind of sketch almost like a rounded triangle shape. It's very loose. Then from here, the rounded triangle is going to have kind of like a rounded square shape or little topper on it. And then from here, we're going to complete Thor's hammer with kind of a boxy shape, just like so. And on top of the boxy shape, there's a little bit of like a rock formation that kind of goes off towards the right slightly. And that is the completion of our painting. I'm just kidding. Anyway. We're in the funky sketch phase right now, so bear with me here. All right, on the right, I'm gonna do kind of a rounded shoulder and then kind of bring it in and then just do kind of a simple vertical line. And then from there, I'm just gonna slope it outward and then just do a little bit of a horizontal line, just like so. And maybe we have another hoodoo that's like partially in view off towards the edge here. So I'm just gonna do a couple little rounded vertical shapes there. Now that we've completed our sketch, let's move on to adding some details and colors to our desert hoodoos. Okay, to get started, I am just going to start with a light wash of Naples Yellow, and I'm just going to take that and just carry it on all the way across. This is going to just be our base color and our highlight color as we start to layer and build our darker colors. Okay, now I want to start to slowly build our color. For this part of the painting, I really want to capture some of the qualities that watercolor can give landscapes, and that's some wet and wet technique. So right now I'm just taking yellow ochre and I'm going along, starting the left edge and kind of sloping this down towards the left corner. And I'm going to do the same thing towards the right and all the way across the bottom of the edge of the page here. And next, I just want to take some yellow ochre and kind of go alongside this left edge here. And I'm going to bring it downward, just like so, kind of forming this curve here, which is going to be a rock formation. So I just have this subtle curve. And again, I'm just going to go along this edge. Right up against Thor's hammer, just to start to build our shading. And then I'm just going to carry on and do the same thing on the left sides of the hoodoos of the three wise men. And hoodoos are basically these desert rock formations found in Bryce National Park that form over thousands of years due to rain, wind, flooding, all the elements have created this wonderful desert rock formation called the hoodoos. And in Bryce Canyon, there's tons and tons of them, and it's just beautiful. Okay, now from here, I want to start to build our color even more. I'm going to take some orange, and I'm just going to do a really nice kind of wide wash of orange in this section here. Over in this left corner, just maybe 3 inches up. Then I'm just going to dab a little bit of orange on the left side of the three wise men. And again, it's okay if some of this is, bleeding out. We want some loose organic bleeds using our wet and wet technique. I'm now going to just, in this kind of crevice here that we're going to eventually outline, I want some deep dark orange. So I'm forming this almost upside down cone shape with the vivid dark orange. Next, I'm going to do a nice wash of orange towards the bottom here, keeping it super loose. You could see the jagged edges here. So again, not perfectly straight or too blocky in shape. So just really loose and organic. And I'm going to carry that a little bit towards this right corner and right edge as well. And then I just want to tap some orange on this left side, kind of overlapping slightly with that yellow ochre. And then I just want to add a pop of orange in a couple areas here. I'm just going to take my brush and just add a few pops of the bright orange. Kind of almost outlining this loose shape here. Starting to build the texture with a little bit of wet into dry technique. And I'm going to add just a little bit of the orange on this left edge as well. Okay, so now I simply just want to mix up a little bit of orange with a tad of burnt umber. So just kind of taking that orange down a notch slightly. And from here, I just simply want to kind of layer a little bit of that burnt umber on top of some of the areas of the orange. So this is just going to add a little bit more depth and shading. And again, I'm just kind of layering loosely some of the areas that we went over already, just to help kind of make them pop a little bit. And again, I'm not going too crazy, but just a little bit will go a long way. All right. right, and now I'm just gonna add a touch of burnt umber in this kind of crevice we're kind of building. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of burnt umber alongside this edge, just like that, and allow it to just kind of bleed into that orange just a little bit. And now at this point, I kind of just want to allow our paint to set and dry, and then we're gonna add some more texture to our hoodoos and just more details in general once it's kind of set and dry. To do our finer details, I'm gonna be using our size 6 and size 2 brush mainly. Starting with size 6, I want to start with some burnt umber, and I'm going to mix a little bit of our orange with it as well, just to give it a little bit more of a pop. I think we need a little bit more burnt umber. Okay, so next, I'm just going to start by building some of our finer details, and I'm going to start with this left corner. I'm just going to add a little bit of really loose texture to our rock face. Again, allowing some of the brighter orange to pop through the gaps, and then just kind of tapping with the size 6 brush to get a little bit of loose texture here. Next, I want to start to kind of build our outlines with the 3 wise men. And first I want to start by just loosely kind of defining their basic shape. So I'm going to just start by adding a little bit more of the shaded color towards the left and swooping that shaded color towards the bottom right, and just kind of tapping a little bit more texture in there. I'm going to do the same thing on this left side here. And then about, I would say, just slightly below the head, if you will, of the 3 wise men, I'm going to outline a bottom or second layer of the hoodoos just below. So I'm just simply outlining the left side of each and then doing a slightly curved line below each of those shaded areas, just to kind of loosely define some of those rock formations. Next, I want to take a little bit of orange, just straight orange, just to get a pop of the bright neon orange in there. Again, I'm just lightly tapping in some of that nice pop of orange. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of reshape the heads of you, if you will, with the 3 wise men, just to be a little bit slightly boxier up towards the top. So again, I'm taking that burnt umber and orange mixture just to help kind of reshape these just a little bit, and kind of dragging down that shaded color towards the left side. Alrighty, and now I'm just going to continue with that shaded color and add just a little bit of texture on this left side, just a little bit. And again, I'm just dragging my brush across just to get a little bit of a softness to that shaded color once it's applied. Next, I'm just going to add a bit of bright orange to these areas. Again, just really loosely tapping my brush. Next up, I want to switch gears to my size 2 brush, carrying on with the shaded color a bit more. And I am going to simply start with a curved line. I'm gonna add a little bit more burnt umber actually to our mixture. I'm just gonna add a slightly curved line. And again, the curved line has a little bit of jaggedness to it. I'm not making it perfectly smooth, if you will. And then from here, I'm going to do another outline of this little like crevice here. And this one's going to be a little bit thicker. And again, it has really loose, rough edges. And then from there, I'm just going to do another kind of slightly angled line, just like so. And then I'm just going to outline the right edge here. And then from here, I want to start to just add some horizontal lines. So I'm going to start by just doing some jagged, really loose horizontal lines, just like so. And they don't always complete towards the edge, as you can see. But I'm just creating a little bit more jagged texture, if you will. And this way we can really start to see our rock formations build. I'm going to continue this jagged vertical line downward all the way here. And then now at this point, now that I've gotten those areas defined, I'm going to take some orange and I'm just going to re-add in some bright orange in a few of these spots, just to give a little bit more of a pop of color. And again, we're just layering and building our color here. And then from there, I'm going to take some of our shaded color and just kind of texturize some of the brushwork of applying our crevices and our lines. I just want to kind of take the tip of my size 6 brush and just kind of build some shading alongside the left edges, as you can see along these lines just a little bit. I'm kind of dragging my brush to get that dry brush texture, keeping it super loose. Here maybe I want to add just a few more kind of organic loose taps of the burnt umber and the orange, just to add a few more jagged dash marks in here to kind of build the organic look of the rock and the crevices. That way it doesn't look perfectly like a tic-tac-toe situation of the squares. We want some unevenness and irregular. For some reason, irregularity is like the biggest tongue twister for me to say, but you know what I mean. Okay, so we've got this beautiful rock texture, and I'm just taking my size 6 brush just to kind of lightly buff it out slightly so it's not too over the top as far as definition goes. Okay, right on the inside here, I want to add just a couple really loose horizontal dash marks as well. I'm kind of shading this right side a bit more. And there we have it there. Next, I want to mix up a little bit more burnt umber into our orange and burnt umber mix here. And I'm going to start by defining some of our lower areas of the rock formation, doing a rainbow curve to begin. And I think I overdid it with the burnt umber there, so I'm going to add a little bit more orange into that. That's okay. So I'm starting with an upside down kind of rainbow curve, if you will. And then I'm going to swoop my brush for another rounded curve and bring it all the way down, just like that. And then here, I'm just going to do another slight curved line and then a second one as well down below. This is just like a really loose sketch. And then from here, I'm gonna take my size 6 brush now and tap into that shaded color a little bit more. And then just take the tip of my brush and just do an up and down motion to kind of loosen up some of that brushwork so it's not as perfectly of a smooth line. Then I'm going to take a little bit of water and kind of buff it out just a little bit. We really just want some loose definition. The sketch really just helps get a foundation going for that. So now I'm just taking my brush again and doing kind of a up and down motion and applying good pressure just to kind of buff out the smoothness of that line. Next, I'm going to take a little bit more of that burnt umber and orange blend and just shade the left edges just a bit more. And it kind of dragging my brush to get this loose rock texture as well. And then I'm gonna just take some plain orange and just tap to get a couple nice vivid orange highlights in there. Okay. So now I also want to just slightly loosen up. So just kind of softening that line a little bit, loosening it up a little bit. That way it's not too overly defined. I'm just going to redefine with a little bit of burnt umber this edge, just so we can see a little bit of definition here. And then I just drag it out with pressure with my brush. Okay, so now moving on, I want to take my size 2 brush again, using the blend of the burnt umber and the orange to now kind of start to define Thor's hammer. So I'm going to start with the left edge, just going all the way down. From there, I'm going to do a little rounded dash line, just like that. I also want to do a second rounded dash line just below here. And then I'm just going to do a few jagged brush strokes off towards the right here. I want to also define this kind of rounded triangle that we've got going on. So I'm just going to define it just by outlining the bottom and kind of work my way towards the top, just defining these loose shapes. I'm going to define this little area here and then add a couple loose vertical lines. The rounded triangle also has like kind of a second layer here that's defined. This part is where the painting gets really just loose with all of the outlines and jaggedness. So feel free to pause at any point just to catch up, just to get this definition and texture down. A lot of it feels kind of almost intuitive as you paint. So if needed, feel free to pause at any point. So here on this right edge, I'm just gonna take my size 2 brush and just define right along that edge, this crevice a little bit. And now I just wanna take my size 6 brush and take a little bit of orange actually, and just define some of these areas with a pop of orange. Just loosely kind of tapping it again, Just kind of playing around with the color variants within this earth tone palette. And then from here, I just want to soften some of the harsh lines just by adding pressure to my brush and just a little bit of color with the mixture of the burnt umber and the orange. Okay, so now I'm going to switch gears and just extend this line down just a little bit here. Kind of connect it to this line slightly. And now I want to move on to just this area. So I'm going to take my size 2 brush, mix up a little bit more of burnt umber with orange. And I simply just want to start to build a little bit more brushwork here. So I'm going to start with the horizontal line at this point, about 1 inch across, and then bring it up to this curve. As you can see, there's this slight curve. And within that, I'm going to do a couple curved crevice lines, kind of going downward. And then from there, I just want to do a couple horizontal dash lines just to kind of help build the rock texture and the hoodoo formations. So from here, I'm going to bring this down and continue it downward. And now I want to shade the left side using more of that burnt umber orange blend. And I'm just dragging my size 2 brush slightly across to get that nice dry brush texture. And then from here, I'm gonna just do the same thing on this left side. Just add a little bit of shading on this left area. And then same thing goes for the left of this hoodoo. I'm just defining it, adding a couple horizontal curved lines. And then just shading along that left edge. And now I want to start to add a little bit of VanDyke Brown to some of these edges just to help define it a little bit more. Carrying on with my size 2 brush, just want to kind of build up some of that shading slightly. I actually want to bring it back to this little crevice as well. And then just along this edge here. I'm just kind of lightly buffing it out with a little bit of water. And add just a little bit more on this left side. And just, again, dragging it outward. Then I'm going to add just a little bit in this left corner and drag it out as well. This darker shade is just going to help give a little bit more contrast overall. And then lastly, I'm just going to add a little bit right in here, just a tad bit. Okay, so now we can switch gears to our size 6 brush. And I'm just going to take more of our shaded color and just kind of apply that right in here. So our orange and burnt umber. And then I'm gonna add some neon bright orange right in that center area, and it's slightly cut off, but that's okay. And then just a touch of plain burnt umber, kind of tapping it into the horizontal line sketch areas. Okay. I'm going to add some of our blended color into this crevice area. Maybe kind of curve it, add some texture to it so it's not perfectly horizontal. And then I'm going to add a touch of our VanDyke Brown into that as well. Okay, so now I want to add just a little bit of water to our color here that we've mixed, and I'm going to add a little bit more orange to it as well. And then I just want to use that to kind of lightly incorporate some more color into this area, especially on the left side of every kind of square, if you will. We have some defined squares or rectangles that are tall and narrow, and I just want to add a little bit of pigment in there. Next, I'm going to take some plain orange and just tap in a few elements of the plain bright orange just to give it a pop. And then lastly, a little bit of burnt umber. Oh, or a lot. That's okay. And I'm just going to tap out some of the burnt umber in here just to help define some of the crevices. I'm just kind of layering it about. Okay. So this is very loose and textured. And I want to leave some of that Naples yellow in there as a nice highlight and pop. And then I'm going to add just a little bit more burnt umber in this horizontal kind of crevice here. Okay, so that was a lot, I'm not gonna lie. But I absolutely love how it's turning out. And before we do anything more, I'm going to just take a little bit of that blend of burnt umber and orange and just add a little bit of dry brush texture to our rock. So I'm simply just using the belly of my brush and just dragging it with some of that color. Not everywhere, obviously, but just on a few rock faces to get a little bit of a looser, organic look. For our sky, I'm simply just going to take my size 6 round brush, and I want to use some Prussian Blue, and I just want a solid blue sky. So I'm just going to take our water and just fully saturate our sky and carefully and mindfully paint around the edges. Not necessarily paint, if you will, add the water around the edges right now, but we will paint around the edges with the Prussian Blue, and be mindful to add a little bit of the Prussian Blue in these 2 gaps in between the 3 wise men as well. So I'm just going to carry on kind of applying some water so that way my blue can just kind of bleed and blend. It's okay if there's some areas where the blue is lighter than others. That can kind of mimic negative space on your page for a cloud even, so you can get creative with this. But I'm just going to simply go along these edges and then apply our blue in a nice kind of watery wash style with our Prussian Blue. Thank you so much for joining me for today's tutorial. This was not an easy one, so if you made it through, give yourself a pat on the back. There were a lot of details, but I hope you enjoyed painting Bryce Canyon National Park. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any further watercolor tutorials.